What's up, everybody? My name is Jacob Deaton, and I am so glad you're back here with Southern Wedding Professionals. And today I have an awesome opportunity to speak with Katie Carroll from Katie Daisy Photography. Katie, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm great. So, what's new in your world? Tell us what's going on right now.
Yeah, well, it's midst of October, so any wedding professional knows that it's like busy season. I've had 8 weddings this month, so a lot of smaller elopements with COVID and then some bigger weddings, but actually had right now, I had an elopement last night and I have another elopement tonight and then a wedding on Saturday. So just right in the nitty gritty, and it's been kind of crazy, but we're still moving through it.
You are in the thick of it, no doubt. That's good to hear. It's anytime I talk to someone and they say they've done 8 or 10, or you're probably going to do 14 or 20 or something this month, it seems like, anytime I talk to somebody that's busy, that's always a good feeling.
It is good. Sometimes it can be overwhelming, but I feel like working through busy times makes you a little bit better at what you're doing. So, because you've done it so many times, so it's
Right.
good. It's good.
So walk us back a little bit. I was really taken by your website, which we'll include a link in this whole presentation here. But
Yeah.
um, it seems like you've done a lot, and forgive me, you don't seem very old.
I'm
So
not
your website is absolutely beautiful.
so
Tell
much.
us how you got back into, or tell you how you got into photography and sort of from the beginning, and walk us till now.
Yeah, so I guess the first time I picked up like an actual camera was in high school. I was in journalism, yearbook, all of that stuff, like the nerdy stuff. I went to a pretty big high school, so there's a lot of people. I mean, the yearbook staff was huge, so it's kind of hard to like stand out.
Mm.
So I didn't really like pursue that into college because I wasn't like really good at it, I guess you could say, or recognized a whole lot in high school. But I did a lot with sports photography, kind of for journalism and that. And then going into college, I was an athlete all of my life. So
Oh,
I was a gymnast. So I went through college for exercise science and didn't really think of anything. Sometimes when you go to college, you just one goal is to get through it and then find a job. So that was my goal. I actually finished a little early, 3.5 years, with an exercise science degree. And then life happened. I got married, all of that stuff. And then my husband got me a camera for Christmas, like a new camera. And, of course, when you get a new camera, you got to practice, you got to shoot people. So I was taking pictures of like friends and family. We just built a house. So, like, we were taking photos of our house and the building process and all of that. And then once I kind of did that, my husband was like, well, maybe you should like charge for this since you're doing it so much. Cause it was like a hobby that was like almost, I was doing as much as my real job. um, so I guess that was about a year ago. So I've only been in photography, I guess, like updated wise for about a year. And then my husband owns a couple businesses. So he's kind of been like a mentor of mine and starting this as like a professional business. So I've been doing that for about 8 to 9 months. So mainly I focus on weddings, but I will do families and seniors and that stuff as well. So that's kind of my journey. I actually just quit my full-time job to do photography and marketing. So that's a big step. Um,
yeah.
Leaving, it's always scary leaving from what you study with in college to do something that was a hobby. But, if you could say you don't go to work and you do it for a job, it's the best feeling ever. So that's kind of like my journey.
That is amazing, and there's a lot to unpack here. So let me try and remember all of it. Where did you go to school?
So my family moved around a lot. So I'm actually originally from upstate New York.
Okay.
So he'll hear that northern accent come out a little bit. And then I went to high school in Arkansas and then college in here in Chattanooga, where I'm from, or where I live.
Okay, and what college in Chattanooga? What was the?
UTC, so University of
What?
Tennessee at Chattanooga. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, all right, cool. And so tell me about this gymnast endeavor. How did you that's great. You're the first gymnast or ex-gymnast I've had on this podcast. So I gotta know,
Yeah, I was pretty competitive. I started when I was 5, grew up through it. There was points where I was traveling a lot for it, like to Texas and Indiana and Pennsylvania, all over the place. And then kind of in high school, it was that decision time. Do I commit to a scholarship or do I retire? It's a hard decision. I ended up getting an injury, which kind of retired me. So I didn't pursue it going into college. So that's where my kind of love for exercise and physical fitness grew, was because of how active I was when I was younger.
Right. I
Yeah.
might have to hit you up for a dietary plan after this. Trying
I'm
to beat that
actually,
COVID-19.
right? I know. I'm actually personal training certified. That was my other job before. That was my last job before I left that to do photography. So.
Right. Wow. That's awesome. I really love lifting weights actually. Like I like the I call it the old man strength training. You know what I mean? Where you do like all the the overhead presses and
Yeah,
the
the
deadlifts
fixed
and stuff.
machines.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. I try to stay pretty active. I mean, being a wedding photographer, you have to be active because you're like standing for 8 hours. So I'm blessed that I have that background. So I'm a little bit in shape, so I can do that without like
Right.
sweating. But I still make fitness pretty important to my lifestyle. So
It
because
is.
I've done it for so long.
It's super important. I mean, one, you're getting like thousands and thousands of steps just shooting a wedding, but also
Yes.
it's important to take care of your body and to
Oh
make
yeah,
sure that
of
you're doing,
course.
you're
Yeah,
looking
of
good, you're feeling
course.
good. You
Right.
know?
And of course, COVID didn't help that any, but.
No, like I said, I'm still trying to lose my COVID-19 over here. I'm back at it again, which is
You got it. You
it's
got
always
it.
brutal when you restart.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
So okay, so you start this whole physical this physical fitness journey,
Yep.
and your husband buys you this camera. What's the first camera you get?
It's a Canon Rebel T6.
Okay.
So it's a crop frame Canon, and I mean I loved it. It was a new camera, so of course you're gonna love anything you get. But
Sure.
um, so he got that for me, and of course it was just like the stock lens that was on it. It was like f/4, the lowest it went, and then just like the batteries and like 5 SD cards, and like it was like a cute little kit he had got me, but it was a starting point for me, or I guess a restarting point for a hobby I had loved, when I was little or younger.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and so tell me how organically this grew. So you get a camera, you're doing your thing, and you're taking pictures all the time because it's like your passion and your love and your dream, and but maybe not even a dream yet. It's just like something you love.
Yeah.
And then what was the transition point to where they got you to the point where your husband was like, well, you should start charging for this because you're really good.
Yeah, so it actually started in fitness because that was my full-time job. I was actually working with a company called Orange Theory Fitness,
Hmm.
as a coach, and I had done pre-sales and marketing for them, for a while, as well as long
Ooh,
and
good to
as
know.
with
To know.
coaching. Yeah, so I guess I kind of started taking pictures, like headshots of the staff, and like when we went to marketing events, I would take pictures of the marketing events to put on our newsletter and stuff like that, more of a marketing aspect. And then a girl had contacted me about, I would say, a month, 2 months in to me getting the camera, and she's like, "Hey, I am going to like a bodybuilding show. Can you take photos for my website or my social media?" And I was like, "Sure." I knew her from college, so that was like my first like photo shoot in a gym, of course. So we kind of went to the gym, and I like shot her photos, and they kind of blew up. Like she was sharing them, which was awesome. And other people started contacting me, like, "Hey, can you do my senior photos? Hey, can you do my family photos?" And I was like, "Okay, this is weird. Like, what?" And so I did a couple shoots, and then at that point, it was like another month and a half in. My husband was like, "Okay, maybe you should like pay money for this or charge money for this because you're doing it so much."
Mm, yeah.
But I guess it wasn't really till probably 2 3 months where I feel comfortable enough taking money, because it is like a big step, and you want to feel like you're, I guess, good enough to like
Oh
take
yeah.
people's money. And then of course you have all the legal stuff that you have to set up prior to accepting payment. So I had to do that. I had to get an LLC and insurance, all that good stuff, before I could like feel better about taking people's money.
So how did the transition happen from just random things happening to all of a sudden you're doing weddings? Like what happened with there?
So I was shooting everything under the sun. Everything that somebody contacted me, I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, I'll do it. And I was doing everything from corporate events to seniors to families to newborns. And I was second shooting for another photographer for some wedding material.
Mm.
Then I had met some other creatives in the Chattanooga market. Her name's Penny Shabali. She does like styled shoots and stuff. And I was like, yeah, I'll go to a styled shoot. Like, I've never been to one before, and this will be good content for me to get into weddings. So I went to the styled shoot, and part of the reason why I went to is my best friend was one of the models. And so I went there, shot that, and those pictures just kind of went everywhere. Because, you know, with styled shoots, you have multiple vendors. Included in that. So they'll share those photos. I'll share the photos, the models. You got a lot of people, I guess, connected that your photos go a lot of places in the wedding industry. So after that styled shoot, I had booked my first wedding. It was actually last September in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. And it was a friend of mine that her photographer actually canceled. And so she needed somebody quick. And so I did it for like super cheap because it was my first wedding and I was like freaking out. But I traveled to Oak Ridge from Chattanooga, shot this wedding, and she was like, that went way better than I expected because I was up front, I said, this is my first wedding, like I'm nervous. But she said she couldn't have been happy with the experience with the photos. All her family was raving, and I was like, okay, maybe I should like just do weddings because it is hard to find your like the avenue you want to go down so you can kind of perfect that.
Right.
So after that wedding, I kind of was like, okay, in my head, I was like, maybe I should just focus on weddings and focus on building my portfolio for those higher end clientele that I'm trying to attract. So that's kind of how the transition kind of happened, was after that initial styled shoot and then my first wedding.
Wow. And that's only like a year ago. So you're from a year, you went from, this is kind of my first wedding and I'm kind of getting my feet wet with this whole thing and it went well. And now I'm thinking about maybe making this transition to you're doing 10, 15, however many weddings this month.
Yeah.
How did you get the word out that all of a sudden everybody should know about what you do? Was there marketing tactics or marketing sort of, obviously you have a little bit of background from that from the Orange Theory marketing kind of stuff. Did you employ some of those ideas or was it like 100% like word of mouth?
So it was kind of both. Through Orange Theory, I basically opened a studio. So I had to like head on the marketing aspect myself. So I learned a lot as far as like social media tactics, graphic design, business to business relationships, lead generation, all of that stuff through the fitness industry, and then kind of transitioned it to my own photography business. But then you have word of mouth too. Being a group fitness instructor, personal trainer, you're on a personal level with a lot of those clients. So, you're having a lot of personal conversations. So of course my photography came up. We were friends on Facebook. So they saw my photography. So I've gained a lot of clients through personal relationships as well. But as far as marketing tactics goes, social media is huge right now.
Yep.
I was really kind of going back and forth on doing like paid advertisement or just like the normal posts on Instagram. But right now I just stick to social media and referrals as marketing because Instagram is a huge platform. There's so many photographers, awesome photographers in Chattanooga. So kind of really honing down on what you want to photograph and just portraying that on your social media, your website, everything will kind of help attract a certain type of client only that you can provide that service for. So like for me, as far as branding and marketing goes, my personality is like, I have a big personality. I'm pretty active, so energetic. So like that personal trainer kind of personality comes out, and that's what people attract, or that's how I attract clientele is through my energy and all of that. So I guess as far as marketing goes, just kind of advertising yourself versus your business helps create more of a personal relationship, and then you can attract, people start gravitating towards you. And that's kind of how it took off.
That's amazing. Yeah, people really do undervalue social media. I spend at least probably an hour and a half a day going through all of my socials and trying to engage with people and sort of try and get to know like what they do and other people within the industry, and just letting people know, or just not necessarily even letting people know about who I am, but just engaging in what they've created.
Of course, of
I,
course.
I yeah, I feel like that's in a world where we can get really too busy to do those types of things. That's 100% the lifeline that we have, and the creative use of hashtags and stuff to sort of gain awareness of like what your brand is, or finding that hashtag that's like a little obscure but direct, so that people will find you.
Of course, of
You know,
course.
those things are so crucial.
They are, and it's a lot too. And you have to create a good like work-life balance, because you work from your phone, so or most of the time to gain new clients, and you kind of have to have a boundary. Okay, I'm going to be on my phone for from 8 to 5, and then relax for an hour, that kind of thing. But
Right.
social media is probably my number one way to generate leads for my photography business.
How much are you posting like per day, per week? Do you have like a set time, or you just say I'm going to work in this time, and whatever I get done in this time is what it is?
So kind of my workflow is I post try to two to three times a day, and through Instagram you can kind of look up your insights or your popular times that a certain demographic will visit your Instagram page or your Facebook page. So through that research, I have honed down on a couple of times per day that I will post. And of course, my content is important. Like for me, I'm trying to gear more towards the elopement, the adventure style photography now or currently. So that's the kind of content or the kind of people that I want to reach. So locations are super important, time of day, your hashtags, your captions, all of that come into a play. But I try to post 2 to 3 times a day. I mean, sometimes when I have weddings, it doesn't happen all the time. But then stories are pretty important as well, because you want people like engaging on your social media page, and using all of the Instagram features are important as well, like polls or videos or reels or questions, things like that will help boost your engagement.
I love it. You're speaking my love language.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I love this stuff so much.
It's fun to kind of go through and be creative with that aspect, because everybody's different. Every photographer has a different kind of flair on social media, and kind of creating that brand for yourself is important, and showing your personality, like showing your face. I try to show my face on my Instagram at least one time a day, just so people know who I am.
Right. That's important, I think, for you. I mean, because it is your own personal brand here that you're building.
Yes, for
Um,
sure.
and if people don't like the word brand, I always say, well, think about it as your reputation.
Yeah.
Because sometimes these, people put words on things like brand, and you're like, this is a little
Yeah.
much for me, or whatever. It's like,
Yeah.
but like truly, it's like it is your brand. But if you don't like to think of it as brand, just call it reputation, because that's what you're building.
Reputation, your personality. I mean, what is the first thing that a client sees? So, or that they kind of take away from your business is, color schemes, your fonts, your photos, your face, all those things kind of create an emotional response that, you want to pick a certain color, a certain font, a certain picture to kind of create that happy feeling or whatever emotion you want your clients to feel about your photographs.
So how do you generate enough content to keep up with the demand?
So styled shoots are something that I've gotten into pretty big, or content days that some photographers are putting together to help other photographers or other local creatives create content for their pages.
Mm,
So for example, like for me, trying to get more into elopement style photography, I don't really book a lot of elopements because I don't have, I guess, images to portray elopements. So content days are good to create that content you want to shoot, or you want to show your clients that you can shoot, so they can kind of book you for those projects. Like for that first content I did, or first styled shoot I did when I first got started, no one would have known I do weddings unless I showed that I did weddings. So those styled shoots are a good kind of foot in the door to get to that kind of clientele you want to shoot. I just did one in Cookville actually on Tuesday. So how they kind of work is, either photographers will put them on or wedding planners. And they usually have 3 or 4 couples or 3 or 4 setups that you can kind of hop around and shoot. But also the good thing about it is there's 10, 12 other photographers there that you can learn from. So my posing, my style is going to be different from, this girl or this guy's photo editing and posing. So listening to other photographers, listening to other creatives will help you kind of be able to be more creative and learn something too. So that's kind of how I get content, is those styled shoots. And sometimes I'll do some on my own too. If I have an idea, I'll rent a dress, grab a couple and be like, okay, let's go here and shoot this. But just kind of getting content so I can be more creative and kind of advertise towards the clientele I want to book.
I mean, simple numbers are simple numbers here. 365 times 3 per year. That's a lot of photos. And even if you're not posting on Saturday or Sunday because you're maybe working or something, but even if you trim it down to 5 days a week times 3 times 4 times 12, it's that's a lot of that's a lot of photos. So you're constantly shooting. I mean, that is a thing for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely a different kind of work week. I mean, I've shot probably every day for the past 3 weeks in October. So, weekends are weddings, of course. And then sometimes I'll have like a mini session day on a weekend where I'll do like back-to-back family sessions. But weekend or weekdays are typically like family shoots or newborn shoots or seniors, those smaller kind of shoots. They're not longer than an hour, and I can usually fit in a couple a day. But photographers work around the sun because that's our light source. So as it gets closer and closer into winter and fall, the sun sets earlier. So our work days look a little different than normal, like 8 to 5.
That's cool. I mean, I admire the hustle, and I tell people that all the time that are on the game with social media.
Yeah.
You're really building and mapping a legacy of like your brand or your reputation. And I think that that sort of passion in what is the start of your business will be irreplaceable and immeasurable later.
Oh, of course. And you can look back, like some photographers will like delete their old work because their style has changed. But I like looking back at my old photos because it's like, wow, like even for me or even clients looking at my page, you can see how much I've grown. And being like vulnerable to a client like that, like, hey, like this is you in my photos, but look at me now. Like I'd love to like go through this journey with you and get even better. And a lot of my clients now, since I've been in it longer, I've shot their wedding, I've shot their maternity photos, and I've shot their newborn photos. So going kind of through that journey and that growth with your client is super cool. And that's kind of how, that's what my favorite part of photography is building those relationships and being able to talk to people like every day. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. Massively important and totally under talked about. So many people that I've talked to on this podcast have just sort of fired out of the gate, and they've been either getting referrals or just organically people have been finding them, and that's all really cool and stuff. But if you don't have a plan in place to implement some of these ideas that you're talking about, and sort of really start to document and really start to build that journey out online and really show potential new clients that that you're out here and you're doing it, you're wasting a really great opportunity to grow your business 2, 3, 5x
Yes.
very, very quickly.
Yep. And for me, like going through those stages of life with clients, I mean, those are going to be your lifelong clients now because you've established this relationship and they're always going to come back to you. I have found in the industry, like I got married, I hired a wedding photographer. I went through the experience on both sides. By all means, I was not a professional when I hired my wedding photographer, and I was not a wedding professional at all. So, when brides find their wedding photographer, the first thing they look at are their photos, right? So that's like number one and first and foremost, but then also you have to meet your wedding photographer. If you don't like vibe with them, if if you don't feel like comfortable with them, then they're not going to book you for their wedding day. So I feel like there's multiple aspects to being a photographer than just like taking photos to like help you grow over, you know, a year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever your long-term goal is.
Right.
So I guess for me, establishing relationships is huge, and I just want to be as personable as possible. And I guess my biggest advice to like new photographers would be like, go out and like meet people, ask to shoot them. Don't wait for them to ask you, you know, like try to get out there and meet as many people as you can.
Right. It's super important. And like you said, building that network of people is really important too, because if you get a call on a date that you're already booked for, being able to personally recommend someone else that you know in your area is excellent and will do
Yeah.
great work. It's a great way to work together as a team and as a
Yes.
community. And that's sometimes overlooked in the dog eat dog sort of world that we seem to.
Yes, I'm very much a lover of community over competition. I've worked with tons of amazing photographers along the way that have allowed me to second shoot for them, kind of be like a mentor. I mean, all these photographers that are hosting these content days are using their ideas and letting other photographers come in and shoot them. So that's like a huge thing for me. Like I've worked with other photographers in this area, Ren Tompkins, Ashley Overby Photography, Sarah Marie, like all of these awesome creatives. And we just try to build community as much as possible because every person has a different want and need. Like I'm not going to book all of the weddings in Chattanooga. I physically can't.
Yeah.
So, I mean, why not refer to like other photographers, videographers, planners? Like there's tons of people in the Chattanooga wedding market that can fit almost every need and want that brides have.
I mean, you said it best right there. I mean, for real, it's really true. Slightly pivoting a little bit, thinking about the times that we're in right now. I mean, you started your business right before all this hit, and by
Yeah.
this I do mean COVID. What sort of challenges have you faced, and what sort of new opportunities maybe have grown from this, horrible, horrible thing?
Yeah, so throughout the pandemic, I was actually at home with my other job through COVID. So I had a lot of time to kind of put towards my photography business. So that's kind of a pro for me. What happened was
Mm.
instead of being at work all day, I was able to kind of focus on my photography business. I did have a lot of weddings that were either canceled, rescheduled, downsized, because, you know, or springtime is very popular for wedding season, and so is the summer.
Right.
I did have a couple weddings that stuck through it. I had a couple June weddings. But most of my brides, I was very fortunate and blessed that they moved their wedding and didn't completely cancel. I think I had one or two cancellations, but I completely understood, and you know, we made all the business terms. But most of my weddings now that were in that season kind of moved to next season, which is really good. But I guess also a pro that came out of it was the elopements. I've kind of grown that love for the elopement style, the more adventure photography. So that's kind of where all that stemmed from, was being at home and all of these brides downsizing their weddings or eloping instead of getting married in like a big, you know, 200 plus people setting, of where I kind of grew that love for it. So that's why I'm kind of trying to rebrand sort of and get more towards that elopement style, because I've kind of like grown for that. I've kind of grown into that love for the more adventure style, like let's hike to the mountain and take photos, like that kind of thing.
Right. That's cool. I
Yeah.
love that. Like, challenging times cause entrepreneurs like yourself to sort of think about where they are and how they can pivot to not only meet the needs of the marketplace, but also, you know, like expand their mind as to like what's
Yeah.
possible
Like
within
try
that.
new things and create new ideas, of course.
Yeah, everybody that I've talked to has somehow figured out how to pivot,
Yeah.
and they've all, none of them has stayed. Nobody has ever stayed in the exact. It's like we're just doing the exact same thing. Everybody that I've talked to during this time has pivoted, and I think that's just beautiful.
And I mean, it's hard to pivot because, you know, you get kind of in this routine of, okay, yeah, I like shooting big weddings. Let me book, 20 big weddings.
Right.
But then at the same time, it gets kind of boring. Like you don't want to shoot as a photographer the same thing over and over and over because you're creative. You want to like try new things, experience new couples, new locations. So I think that's what I really got out of the quarantine was finding ways to like be more creative and try new things. For example, weddings aside, it was super popular for photographers porch portraits, which were kind of fun because you don't get to really like see people in quarantine. So what I did was I had a couple subdivisions that posted about me on their subdivision page, and I just drove around to people's houses and took their pictures on their porches.
Oh, that's so
Which
cool.
is, it was so fun, and it was fun to like get out. I mean, we stayed like the distance, like all of that, and they were able to get family photos done because they weren't able to do it, in the summer and stuff. And some of those families have turned into recurring clients, and they're like, "Oh, you need to come back up to the subdivision and shoot us again," which is fun because they have littler kids, and you kind of just hop around, and it was a
Right.
lot of fun. So that was one thing I did in quarantine to kind of like try something different.
Yeah, that's a great lead in for this. Like I always wonder with photographers specifically, and it's very easy to get into a pattern, like put your hands here, go stand
Yeah.
over there, like this is the obvious wedding shot.
Yeah.
This is this is the down the middle home run sort of wedding shot that you're gonna love. But how do you insert your creativity into what you do for each client so they know they're getting sort of an individualized, customized sort of feel?
Yes.
How does your discovery process with that with each client?
So for me, I read off of their personality. That's why I recommend to do an engagement session prior to the wedding because that's kind of like me kind of feeling for their energy. I'm very communicative. So like prior to booking me, we'll have a phone conversation, hopefully coffee date. Sometimes with COVID, it's kind of hard to meet up, but I
Right,
get a feel for their personality. I send out a questionnaire of like fun, funky questions just to kind of see what they like, what they don't like. And
right,
then as far as posing goes, at the engagement session, that's kind of my personal trial period. So I can try different things. I'm very much a prompt-based photographer, not a posy photographer. With that being said, I'm very action, movement oriented. So for guys especially, they just want to stand like this, right? They just
right.
want to like stand and be like The Rock, which is totally awesome. But sometimes the girl wants their hair flipping, wants to spin,
Mhm.
wants the dip. So like those kind of things create a different kind of image or style for each photographer, because if I spin in a circle or if I jump up and down, it's going to look different than this girl and this girl, or this guy might make a different face and that kind of stuff. So more of the candid moments. But I learned from that from that initial engagement session going into their wedding, what not to do, what to do more, what they liked, that kind of stuff. And it's kind of fun, if we did a certain pose for their engagement session, we'll do the same kind of one for their wedding. And it's kind of sweet, oh, we did this when we were engaged, like for example, a prompt of mine, it's like the slingshot, right? So you're holding hands and you walk apart from each other and then slingshot into each other, and the hair is moving, the dress is moving, all of that stuff. And then when they do it again on their wedding day, it's a little bit more fun, like, oh, I remember this one. So
Mhm.
that's kind of how I create a personalized experience for all of my clients. It's just reading off of personalities, because everybody's personality is different. Everybody's wedding dress is different, their views for their day, their vision. So I kind of feed off of all of that and take that before I pose them or kind of create their story via photographs.
Right. I mean, you said it best there. It's really about the energy of the couple and sort of like what they output. You then internally mix,
Yes,
and come up with
yes.
something special. I just love it when I see uh, photos from a past wedding that I've been to, and you see that one or two shots that's just obviously not what most photographers would have grabbed. You know what I mean? And it's sort of indicative of the photographer's personality as much as the client themselves.
Yeah, and you pull from like the vibe per se of the wedding day too. Like you can, you have the more traditional wedding styles, like the whites, the greens, the golds, but then you have more of the kind of out there bride that'll have like boots on or have a hat or like, so different things. And that's kind of, you pull from that vibe to kind of create those prompts and poses. So it's pretty cool. And like with the elopements, especially, I mean, it's just you, the couple, and the officiant. So like you can be as creative as you want. You don't have to worry about Aunt Lisa hopping in the background of photos, like photo bombing. You don't have to worry about your bridal party. So I can be a little bit more creative with those via the traditional wedding, but you pull from the vibes.
Right, sure. Tell me about the team that you assemble and sort of different packages and stuff that you offer your clients.
Yeah, so I actually recently just hired an associate shooter. So her name is Burgundy. I met her through fitness. But we're kind of a team now of photographers that will shoot. She'll always be my second shooter. So I kind of did that because with my experience with my wedding, a lot of photographers will hire a random second shooter, typically the ones they haven't worked with before. So it's kind of hard to mesh your workflow with somebody you've never worked before. So I was kind of scared of that, hiring a second shooter. Like, what if, they don't vibe with me? What if they don't kind of understand what I'm trying to work towards? All of that. So I kind of hired Burgundy to kind of be that person. So with me, all of my packages, you get me and Burgundy every single time. So the bride exactly knows what to expect every single time. It's not going to be like a random second shooter. So that was important to me just because of my experience I had with my wedding photographer.
Sure.
But then it's me and Burgundy right now. As far as packages go, I do the traditional wedding package, 8 hours, second shooter engagement session. But then I have the elopement packages as well. Typically it's one price. All the travel and stuff is included in that one price. And then you have the session included with that too. But I try to include an engagement session with that wedding package just so I can initially create that relationship with my couple.
Right. I mean, it's whenever you're speaking to a client and you're trying to convey this information, like, listen, it's really, really, you're spending all this money on a band, food, venue, all, me,
Yeah.
all this stuff. It's got to be sort of an utmost priority for you to sort of push that engagement package, because it's like, listen, I can get to know you. I can figure out what you want, what you don't want.
Yep.
And, I'm not sort of, pulling from the hips, so to speak, and shooting from the hips, as they say, on the actual day. And also it gives them more, photos to choose from. It gives them more, content for them to give. I've also said that, like, I wonder, with the style of like vlogging that sort of happens on YouTube these days, where people will literally just have a camera that follows them around all day, like, how cool would it be if you had that, like, in this, with a photographer that, that follows you around for the entire weekend, and then, like, literally you tell the entire story of like what it's like from when all the bridesmaids show up all the way to the very end, for the send off. So
I did a styled shoot about a week and a half ago, and there was a videographer there, and she like videoed some behind the scenes, and it's pretty cool. You don't pay attention to like what you're saying when you're working. You just kind of get like in this zone. You're like, okay,
right.
I'm gonna work. So seeing myself work, you learn from a lot too. Oh, I should have done that. I should have done that. But going back to like from the time where a client books you or how do you get a client to book? Because you're right, they do spend a lot of money on weddings. And typically the order of bookings, venue is first, photographer is second. That's typically what happens with brides. So once they book their venue, they already know what they want. They already know their vision most of the time. So as a photographer, you kind of have to pitch yourself based on their vision, because some clients aren't going to mesh with you. Some clients have a specific vision, and once they see your photos, you're like, that's really not my vision. And that's totally okay. That's why there's so many photographers in the area. But for me, first impressions are like number one. I try to meet all of my brides via phone call, FaceTime, coffee date, just so, we can meet, because first impressions, like, how professional do you look? How do you speak? No one's going to hire it's going to be hard to work with a photographer that isn't afraid to speak up, because family photos are the most challenging things on wedding days. So you have to have that initial personality that adheres to your client. So, because they are spending a lot of money, they're investing in you ultimately to create their memories that are going to last for a lifetime. They're trusting you to tell their love story. So that's what I try to get across to clients is I'm here for them. I want to capture their story. We're going to do it your way. Your vision is going to come to life. And that's what I think is important when brides kind of look for their wedding photographer, things to kind of watch out for.
Right. I mean, for someone a year in, it sounds like you got it all figured out.
I still have a lot to learn. There's always more. There's always more. I mean, the world is constantly changing. I mean, the wedding photography industry from researching is a lot different than it was, 5-10 years ago. I mean, brides didn't used to spend $2,000 on their wedding photographer, most photographers used to use like the whole light setup and like all of this stuff, but technology has changed to where you don't have to use all that. Like, it's just crazy.
Right. Yeah. I mean, technology is evolving every part of the industry, and I find it extremely fascinating to see. And you're right. I mean, I used to go to weddings, and because I'm so old, I used to go to weddings. I used to see people bring around these huge light trees and all, and these huge soft boxes, and and they're like trying to get it in the right space while the officiant is over there like talking and doing his thing, and they're constantly running and everything, and it was so distracting.
Yeah.
And you're like trying to focus on the couple that's getting married, and all you see are these people running around with like reflection. Like reflection.
Like, oh, hold it in this spot, hold it in
Yeah,
this
exactly. Yeah, I mean that was totally a thing. I mean, for people who don't remember that or that are too young to know, that was 100% a thing.
Yeah, and I mean, there still are photographers that use that tactic, but that's their style, if there's couples that of course are looking for that style, and that's where it's kind of cool. You have so many different types of photographers because that's still in. It's still, and I feel like vintage trends always come around
Right.
at some point. Or older trends, like
It does.
yeah, for sure. Like right now in the photography industry, like the old like grainy images, like the grainy kind of style is definitely back in for photography. So, and I know that was like a trend back then, like the old grainy film, that kind of stuff.
Right. Well, it was supposed to be the roaring 2020, and everybody was supposed to be in flappers and,
Right.
old school attire here,
Yeah.
and well, COVID. So,
Yeah, of course.
yeah, I guess we'll just postpone that to next year or something.
Yeah, put a pin in that.
Yeah, just put a pin in it. We'll come back to it next year.
Of course.
No big deal. This year didn't exist. It just
I know.
didn't exist.
I know.
Before we let you go, I want to make sure that everybody gets a real cool understanding of who you are as a person, and someone that like has obviously lived a couple of different lives already. You've given us so much, but I'm going to ask just a few rapid fire questions.
Okay.
And you give me some answers, and don't worry, they're totally PG.
I feel like I'm on the Ellen show, where she asks like rapid fire or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
It's like the Ellen. Yeah, exactly. So,
Perfect. I love Ellen.
So tell me, do you have a favorite genre of music or favorite band?
I love country music. I'm big into Morgan Wallen right now.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great. It's funny. I actually just had a client ask me to play an instrumental version of a Luke Bryan song to sing to them.
Yeah, Luke Bryan's good
really
too.
Cool. I'm like, why do you want an instrumental version of a song that needs to be sang? It's kind of goofy, but whatever.
Yeah.
So I sent them that, but I also love country, but I like the old stuff. I like
the old stuff, like my husband likes Johnny Cash, Dolly Parton. We're huge Dolly Parton fans. We love Dollywood, that whole thing. But
sure. That's cool. What's are you a reader? Do you like to read books? If so, like what's the last book you read?
I don't really read a whole lot of books. I do like to read like educational books. Like I just read a book on LinkedIn. I don't know. I just like to constantly learn.
You're like me. I like reading stuff like that.
Yeah, like motivational books, like things like that. Like, I don't know, something I can pull out of that are real life examples. I mean, I do love reading, like Harry Potter, of course, but
Right.
I feel like the stuff I could learn from and like have to highlight things and read it multiple times. That's what I like.
This is a really tough one, but what's your last meal? If you're gonna have the last meal of your life, what is it gonna be?
Oh, what is it going to be? I would have to say Chick-fil-A. I love Chick-fil-A.
Of
Like,
all the things in the world, you're gonna pick Chick-fil-A?
you
Why?
know, listen, I don't know. It's just something like comforting. Like you go to get Chick-fil-A and those peppermint milkshakes in the winter. I mean, my goodness,
Yeah,
they're so
listen.
good. But I guess if I had to cook something, since I'm from New York, I would say good like calzone or
Right,
pizza or like lasagna, something like that, you know?
right. Yeah, I mean, there's something about that blessed chicken, right?
Oh my gosh, it's so good.
There's something in that. I'm convinced. It's like Coke back in like the 60s and 70s.
Right? And I feel like there's so many, like Chick-fil-A is even busier now than it was when they had their dining room open. I was like, how is this? Like, I don't think they'll ever open their dining room because it's just as busy, or probably
Why?
more busy.
I mean, why? It's just more work.
Yeah, more
I
people to
mean,
employ.
right, exactly. If they're not considering that model for the future, their marketing department should
Maybe
be.
I should start drive-through photography.
Right, there you go. Right? Maybe. I mean, hey, this is
You
2020.
never know. You never
Anything
know.
can happen.
Yeah, right.
Um, do you have I mean, you're an athletic gal, so do you like sports?
I do. I do like watching football. You know, typical Southern. You know, football is great.
I'm
Um,
guessing
I
UT,
watch
right?
collegiate gymnastics. I'm sorry, what?
UT, are you a UT fan? Is that what it is?
I'm not really like a specific fan, but I cheer for UT because I live in Tennessee and my husband went to grad school there. So like, you know, I'll be like, yeah, Tennessee, but I knew people that played for like Arkansas. So I'll just kind of cheer for whoever winning, I guess.
You're an equal opportunity lover in sport. So you said you watch gymnastic competition still and
Yeah, yeah.
everything?
In gymnastics season, I will watch like the collegiate meets on TV.
That's so cool. I don't know that I know anybody that watches that.
I know I'm probably the only
But
person, but
no, I mean obviously there are people because it's on TV.
yeah,
So
yeah. I guess all the gymnasts watch it pretty much.
right, yeah. I mean honestly, gymnasts are like some of the most incredible athletes in the world.
Oh, my body's paying for it. I'll tell you that.
I mean what they do is just like, it's not only impressive, but it's like super stressful on the body, as I
Yeah,
understand.
it's pretty crazy.
Right. I mean, and you're in the gym like every day doing all the things, all the flips, all the
Yeah,
twists.
all the flips. Yeah.
I mean, working out probably even
Yeah.
just as much, lifting weights and stuff, right?
Yep, yep. It's like a
Wow.
full-time job, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Do you miss it? Do you miss competition a little
I
bit?
miss I miss like the competitive side, but I think like that's why I'm such a hustler is because I've learned from that and like I kind of transitioned those mentalities to my own business, and I think that's why I like working for myself so much is because I can kind of like bring back that competitive spirit. You know, healthy competition is always good, and like hustler, so just go get her, and that's kind of what you have to do in athletics.
Right.
So
It is very true. That is 100% what you have to do in
yes.
athletics. One final question, and we'll leave it at this. Um, in your 1 year journey with photography, and what's kind of gotten you to this point, was there a piece of advice that you learned or read along the way that was just like, oh yes, that's it, that's me, that's what I need to do, that's like the inspiration that I need to draw from in this low time, high time, whatever? Is there something that sticks out to you that just says, wow, that's what I need to hold on to through my whole process?
I think the biggest thing is don't be afraid to be yourself. Like for me, it's hard to like scroll through Instagram and look at other photographers and be like, oh, I wish my photographs looked like that, or I wish that I had that style or whatever. But for me, people are gonna pick you for you. Like don't be afraid to be yourself. Don't be afraid to try new things. Like if you think of it, do it. Don't like think, oh, well, that person didn't do it, so I'm not going to do it. That's what gives you that competitive edge, and that's what gets you to stand out to your clientele. So, and it's hard too. It's hard to be yourself because it's hard to put your face out there because the market is so saturated, but it's fun. And once you get used to it, the more you do it, the more comfortable you're going to feel. Like to be confident at something, you have to do it at least 30 times. So, just try to be on Instagram or Facebook, like take a selfie and post it. Tell the world what you're doing that day or things like that. Like for this, like don't be afraid to go on a podcast and talk about your experiences. Don't be afraid to give advice to other photographers, like what you've learned. Like just be yourself.
I love that because really ultimately it comes from a place of judging yourself and being
Mm-hmm.
insecure with who you are and sharing that with the world. And you're not for everybody, and that's okay. But you opening yourself up and giving yourself to the world, you never know who you're going to encourage or you're going
Yep.
to inspire. And also um, be okay with the journey. Be okay with the fact that you're learning and you're growing every day. Because if you have that mentality and you're working, then every day your work is going to get better and better. I
Exactly.
love that. That's one of my favorite things to tell people. I like
It
it.
is. I like it too. And I mean, I still do it. I'll find myself scrolling through Instagram and be like, oh my gosh. But then I have to think, okay, it's a journey. You just have to go through the process. And one day I'll get there. One day I'll have, 10,000 followers on Instagram and, be able to travel the world. But it's a process and I'll get there. Like, it's just one step at a time.
Well, it sounds like you're already well on your way. Katie, thanks so much for being here
Yeah. Thank
and
you for
being a
having
part of
me.
this podcast. I mean, you were such a joy to just
Wow.
get to know. And we look forward to hearing more from you and soon. And we'll probably have you back before you know it.
Yeah, I would love it. And you can find all my stuff on my Instagram page, on my website. And don't be afraid to send me a message. My phone number is on my website, so feel free to call, text, anything like that.
I love it. And we'll list all that in the description of all of this. So thank you so much for your time. This has been another episode of Southern Wedding Professionals, and we will see you later.